Well, hello and good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever and whenever you are. Thank you for joining us for another Legiwa Quick Take webinar, where every other week we aim to provide you with a big payoff in knowledge for a small investment of your time. My name is Wayne Newitz with Legiwa, and I'm thrilled to be your host today for our expert presenter. And in fact, let us get started by talking about today's topic. And that topic is best practices in warehouse management system, WMS, implementation. Something I suspect many of our viewers here have gone through during their careers, and something that is often not necessarily best memory in your life, but there's no reason why it can't be. And so we're going to get into that and talk about how, from the time you purchase your software to the time it is helping you become profitable. We're going to talk about how you can help minimize that time and optimize this whole experience. Just to set the stage and set it in a way that is somewhat obvious to make these statements, right? Ideas are easy, implementation is hard, fairly obvious statement. But I think especially when we are looking at technologies, oftentimes we feel it is a panacea. It is, if we just buy that perfect piece of software, everything is going to be fine. Our businesses are automatically going to improve profitability, efficiency, and everything. Well, yes, with the right purchases, that is going to happen, but it does not happen automatically. It requires work, and it requires work from both sides of the vendor and the purchaser, you and the partner. And I emphasize partner because it is much more than a vendor relationship with mission critical systems, that you and your vendor partner work together as one team. Now, setting that stage, the devil, as we know, is in the details. And we have with us someone who has been working in those details for many years, implementing countless warehouses in his career. My friend and colleague, our director of onboarding and implementation, Surjan Yashar, is here with us. Surjan, welcome. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to you right now, and we'll get into those details.
Thank you, Wayne. Hi, folks. Thank you very much for being here again. So today, I'll try to give you some tips about what to do and expect before, during, and after onboarding to get the best out of your SaaS product. And of course, I won't be able to cover each and every detail that goes into these processes within the time that we have. So I tried to focus on the areas that are both important, but also overlooked most of the time. I will cover these areas under these three big main sections. First, planning for WMS implementation, the steps you should be taking to be as ready as you can before the implementation begins. Optimizing your onboarding journey, what to do to ensure the smoothest process possible. And staying engaged after onboarding, the different types of ongoing support after go live. So let's start with the next slide. Let's start with the planning. First, we should plan ahead of time. Most companies start looking for a new WMS solution when it becomes impossible to survive without one, which means they don't have enough time to do their due diligence or implementation properly. For example, if you need a new WMS system up and running, you should start looking for one at least 3 months ahead of your projected go live date. At least a month for finding the right partner, and in average 1 or 2 months for proper implementation. Once we make sure that we have enough time, we can start looking for a good fit product. So let's see what we can do for finding a good fit product for your operations. When you want to purchase anything, there are hundreds of vendors and products with different functions and prices, basically. And there's a perfect buyer for each one of these products. Therefore, it's important now more than ever to know what you're looking for to get the best value. So how do you find the right product for your company? One of the easiest way is to prepare an RFI document where you list all your functions that you need is important. This will make it easier for you to eliminate a lot of options with ease so that you can only focus on the ones that can deliver. It is also a good way to hold your vendors accountable. And a couple of tips for preparing an RFI document. Don't make assumptions. Always ask for what you need to make sure that they have it. For example, have questions like, do you have expiry date tracking or first expiry, first out management? This may sound like a basic function, but you never know. So ask for it. Also, another thing to point out here is to separate your wants from needs. You can easily do this by assigning value to each function. And in the end, you'll come up with weighted averages, which will support your decision-making process as well. You can start by assigning the highest value to basic requirements, like solutions to the current pain points, or very basic functions like being able to scan items during picking or printing shipping labels during packing, and then end up with some good to haves, like having a cool looking interface. And another thing to point out here is don't get caught up in variety of functions offered. Focus on what you need. Like, for example, do you need a WMS system to play a random victory song when you complete all your packing all your boxes, for example? Probably no, right? So there's also some things that you can do to help make the implementation easier. For example, you can think about getting your employees excited, and even better, making them a part of decision-making process. Because once the decision is made, you will need a lot of departments in your organization to be involved in adapting this new solution. And some of them will resist this change. Therefore, telling them about how these new changes will make their lives easier or better is important. You can even consider making them a part of the decision-making process. For example, a warehouse manager will have more motivation to support the implementation of WMS system when it's a software of their choosing. Another thing you can do to make the implementation easier is to prepare some resources that you can do before implementation. One of these resources is, of course, an important part of the implementation on your side is hiring a project or implementation manager. Maybe setting up the flow racks or picking locations, even purchasing some hardware before the implementation starts to get ready, like scanners, printers, mobile computers, and so on. If we go to the next slide, there is one more thing I can talk about before the implementation, and it is to get ready for data migrations and integrations. One of the important parts of the implementation is to migrate your data and establish integrations. And switching to a new software can be a real good opportunity to clean out your data and start fresh. So start by scrapping the old data. This can be discontinued SKUs, customers, vendors, even rack locations that you don't use anymore. And make sure that you have a way to export this data from your existing system, or find out a way to gather this data in Excel sheets or whatever the kind of document that is. This can also be a way to establish an API or EDI connection too. Also, you can find out that the existing system has a way to export this data to an Excel file too. In any ways, make sure that you have a way to get this data to your new system. Another thing to consider is to have a full inventory count when you are switching to a new WMS system, because the last thing that you want to have is to deal with inventory discrepancies while you are trying to adjust to a new system. Also, when we talk about integrations, getting ready for integrations, if you have a complicated structure, especially a lot of EDI integrations, API integrations talking to each other, you may need to create integration flowcharts and analyze this integration structure beforehand, so you will be ready when the implementation starts. You can also try to get API keys for carrier and store integrations ready, or prepare some EDI documentation, like mappings or technical documentation of the EDI documents that you have. Okay, now that we planned and prepared for the implementation, let's talk about some important tips to utilize during the implementation. So first, we must establish the stakeholders. Your SaaS vendor will have their team to support this implementation on their side, and will probably assign an onboarding engineer to help. But what will be the stakeholders on your end? The first and most important one is to have a project manager. Having a project manager assigned to oversee the whole implementation is very important. This may seem like a no-brainer, but we see so many projects where there is no specific person that oversees everything. And I can't stress this enough. I can't stress how important this is. The onboarding engineer that your vendor provides will be able to engage all the resources on their side, but they may not be able to effectively organize and move the pieces within your organization. So you need someone for that. Also, a good PM can make sure that your vendor is keeping up with their promises and deliverables on time. If possible, the project manager should be dedicated to this project only. Don't assign someone as a project manager who already has a full-time responsibility, like warehouse manager, for example. And make sure that this person is documenting everything for a backup, so that for some reason, if this person cannot continue, the implementation will not stop or start from scratch. Another big stakeholder on your side is the IT team, especially if you are planning to use APIs or webhooks. You need a development on your end. You will need an IT team on your side and developers. And a part of the IT team can help the setup and maintenance of the computers, printers, and scanners in the warehouse. Sometimes not being able to set up a printer can slow down implementation as well, even though it sounds so easy. Another important stakeholder that you can get ready and assign on your side is super users. So super users will be responsible for learning and evaluating the product. And then in most cases, they are going to teach this product to the end users, the pickers, packers. Have a team of super users and make sure that they attend to all trainings and that they are testing the processes and make sure it works for your operations, for your own scenarios. A good way to utilize and engage super users better is by breaking down the operations into main processes and assigning a super users to each process and make them accountable for it. Like, for example, inbound process can be dedicated to one super user, outbound another super user. So this way, they will be more critical on these processes and feel more responsibility. So now that we established the stakeholders, and the next step, which will actually be the first thing to talk about during the kickoff meeting of an implementation, is to set goals. So you need to set some clear goals. And I want to point out that being onboarded on a SaaS product doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to learn about every little function that they offer or get trained on every single scenario. It's almost impossible. There are thousands of scenarios and functions that you can use. And every company has a unique set of requirements and limitations. So you should think about what it means to be live for you. Do you just need the system to be up and running? Or do you want to go through a more extended implementation process and address not only current scenarios, but also future use cases that you may have as well? But again, remember, not working on future use cases, for example, during onboarding, doesn't mean you can't address them and work them later on. Therefore, what's important here is to set your priorities. For example, if you're not going to use a replenishment process in your warehouse right now, or not planning to use one soon, I would suggest that you skip this part and focus on the processes that you actually need for the initial implementation. So briefly saying, basically, be careful of what you wish, because you might just get it. Once you set your goals, now you need to list all of the action items to accomplish these goals. And when you are listing these action items, try to break them down and be specific as possible. Also, make sure that the responsibilities are clear for accomplishing these actions as well. Like, for example, don't have action items like picking location setup, but instead break them down into steps and assign them to separate people maybe. Like, for example, creating a list of locations, setting up picking priorities and pick path, importing these locations to the system, printing location labels, applying these labels. All of them are separate action items. So list them all separately and make sure that it's clear who is going to be handling them. You also need to keep on track with these action items. And to keep on track, you need to have a shared online platform to collaborate with your vendor. This can be a simple Google Sheets or a shared drive. Also, it can be an advanced online project management platform. Whichever it is important to make sure that all stakeholders are looking at the same platform to be in line about the progress and the next steps. Another important part of the implementation is trainings and practice. Have a plan and schedule for how your team is going to get trained with your vendor. Don't try to teach, for example, the pickers and packers how they need to do things once you go live. Save time before go live to train them and make sure that they practice. And make sure that your super users, admins, and end users have time on their schedules to get trained and practice too. Most importantly here, during trainings and practice, I want to underline this part is the on-hands practice. The trainings doesn't mean you are just going to watch training videos or try to work it on a web platform, but you should actually try these in actual operations. I mean, on-hands practice is the most important part of the trainings. Even science says so, because it engages the both sides of the brain. And then because of that, it helps the retention of the data. Like, think about riding a bike, for example. You can watch hundreds of hours of someone riding a bike, but if you don't ride the bike actually, you will never learn it. And once you ride the bike, you are going to always know about how to ride the bike and get the feeling of it actually. Another fun fact about the on-hands practice is, for example, we get 2 times more questions during practice sessions than the trainings that we give. So it means people are actually realizing if it actually works for them and asking more questions and thinking about more as if and what if situations. So these are the kind of things that you can watch out during the implementation. Now, let's talk about the next step, which is after go live. can we switch to the next slide, please? Thank you. So after go live, it's all about continuous improvements. We talked about having customer-centric goals during the initial implementation. But regardless of what was achieved during the implementation, either this is like an extended implementation or just a system going up and running and inventory tracking, for example, there's always room for improvements. Especially SaaS products, there's always continuous improvement. For example, we are publishing new functions every month. Therefore, you should always be evaluating your processes and keep in touch with your vendors, either by reading through their support documentation or publish articles about new features. You should always be in touch and try to adopt new processes and improve your own processes with the software itself as well. So let's see what are the support structures that can help you improve your processes after go live. One of them, and like the first one and obvious one, is to have support documents and platforms. You should look for some knowledge-based articles, a knowledge-based platform that has supporting documents. Maybe you should ask from your vendor about some process guides, flow charts. Also, training session records and videos can also help for onboarding new employees and learning about the new processes as well. So make sure your vendor has these. And also try to make your own library. Maybe they have thousands of videos, but none of them are, like most of them are not working for you. So you make your own library of documents and videos so you can teach them to new users and easily onboard them. Another important support structure that you should look out for is a customer success manager. It's good to have like supporting documents, but it's not like a person to talk to. So another important thing about customer success managers is they are always watching over your account and they keep you informed about these new features. Maybe you didn't have time to read through the documentation. So try to have at least once a month or twice a month meeting with your customer success manager to keep being informed about the new functions and how you can utilize them. Sometimes it's not necessarily even new functions or issues you want to address. Maybe you just want to brainstorm some ideas with the customer success manager. So either way, there's someone, there should be someone that you can easily talk to on the other side. And I want to give you a quick tip about communicating some requirements with your customer success manager here as well. So before asking for a certain feature, which you may see on another software, try to explain what you need and why you need it. This will help your CSM and product have more flexible approach and most probably a much better solution for your issues or for the features that you're looking for. For example, if you tell your CSM that you need a system to print dangerous items, item labels, once the item is scanned, they may not have this specific feature. But if you explain them what's your issue, and let's say, because this is one of the like things that we encountered recently, so I remember it very well. But once the customer told us that what they are looking for is actually what their issue is, they want to make sure that their packers are applying the correct dangerous item labels to the correct shipping boxes. So it's about finding out which labels should be applied. So basically, we gave them a solution. We gave them pop-up messages that comes up on screen when a dangerous item is scanned that tells them which dangerous item label should be applied. So again, try to explain where you're coming from, what's the underlying issue. So you may not get the exact solution you're looking for, but they are going to be helping in a different way. A segue to this, like relating your problems, it's also important how you handle the communication with the support teams. To utilize the support teams more effectively and efficiently, there are some things you can do proactively. Try to avoid back and forth by providing as much data as you can when you communicate an issue. So if you are getting an error, send them a screenshot of the error. Tell them about the specific order that you encountered this error. You can even tell them which steps that you've taken before getting this error. You can even record a video if possible. The more data you provide, the faster and the more accurate the resolution you are going to get. Also, if you have more than one issue waiting for a solution, consider prioritizing your tickets and make sure your vendor knows which one of your requests are more important and time sensitive for you. Also, identify internal training issues and address them as soon as possible so that you can solve them within the organization. And ask, when you are getting answers, try to ask your support team to teach you how to solve these issues so that when you encounter them again, you can solve them yourselves. Another, if we take it a bit further, you can even think about having your internal support structure, especially if you have multiple warehouses. This is very helpful. A big company, there can be the same kind of requests or requirements coming from multiple places at the same time. Therefore, there will be a load of tickets that are waiting for response, and all of them will have the same thing. It's good to have an internal support structure to manage this communication with your vendor. And it's also good for learning organization. If you have an internal support structure, you'll be able to solve your own issues, therefore work more effectively and be a learning organization. So create your internal support team to address issues and centralize your communications with your vendor. This will help create a better learning organization, like I said, and you will avoid a lot of overlapping tickets, which will help streamline your communication with your vendor. So this was about it. So on the next slide, I'm going to summarize with some quick takeaways about the subjects that we talked about. First, we talked about before onboarding, planning for onboarding. So you should plan ahead and give yourself time to be ready, and give yourself time for the proper implementation. And most importantly, you should know what you're looking for and use RFI documents to communicate with your vendors to find the best fit product. During the implementation, set clear goals and stick to the onboarding plan, and make sure that you have all the required stakeholders, and track progress, always practice, and basically on-hand practice is the most important thing here that we talked about. And the third one, after go live, you should think about utilizing the support structures better for continuous improvement. So after go live, again, it's all about evaluating and reevaluating your processes for continuous improvements and utilizing these support structures to establish that goal. Thank you very much for listening to me again, and you can take away, Wayne.
Well, thank you, Surgeon, very much. Definitely not what we would call book learning, but learning the hard way. A lot of what you just communicated, I believe, to our audience from many implementations. So thank you very much, sir, for sharing your experience with us. And I would like to let our audience know, please be interactive. If you have any questions, anything that you would like to know more about, questions for Sir John, questions about implementation in general, or specifically for WMS implementations, let us know. Use the chat function here in the webinar. While you're doing that, I will let everybody know what's coming next. In a couple of Fridays, same channel, same time. Here, as always, we have our next quick take on the topic, demystifying integration ecosystems for seamless direct-to-consumer operations. I did all of that in one breath. It's a lot of big words, but this is a topic that is of great interest to our industry, how to get all of our different systems, our different data sets working together, integrated, so that we can have one seamless view, visibility of, and control of our operations. A very important topic. We're going to deal with that in a couple of weeks. We hope to have you back for that. With that said, do look for a link to a recording of today's session. Again, any questions, please do let us know. Any interest in software, of course, that is what we do to keep the lights on here at LaDua. We'd love to hear from you. If you are working anywhere in the direct-to-consumer domain right now and having to fulfill e-commerce orders, we'd love to speak with you, see how we might be able to help. You can go to our website, ladua.com. You can go to request a demo, and we'd love to show you what we've got. So with that, folks, again, thank you for your time, your interest. Surgeon, thank you. Hope everyone has a very safe and happy weekend coming up. Take care, and we'll see you back for the next quick take.